Hi, my name is Lisa, and today I'm going to be making the Tilly and the Buttons Billie sweatshirt. I'll show you the pattern. The Billie sweatshirt comes in UK sizes 6 through 34, and it's a pattern for confident beginners. I would say that I fall under the category of confident beginner. I've done a few Tilly and the Buttons patterns before, but this is my first time working with knits. So I'm excited to try something new. The sweatshirt has a couple style options, so you can either make the normal length sweatshirt or you can make a longer version, which is more of a sweater dress. There are also two sleeve styles. There's a regular straight sleeve as well as a puff sleeve. So I will be making the regular length sweatshirt with the regular sleeves. I'm just looking for a basic piece for my wardrobe. I have a few hoodies, but I don't tend to wear the hood, and I find that it adds a lot of bulk under my winter coat. So I would just like something plain and basic that I can easily take on and off, and that will fit under my coat comfortably. So I'll show you the fabric that I've bought. This is an organic cotton fleece that I got from Core Fabrics. The color is called Evergreen, and it's a nice rich green. The cotton itself is grown in India, but it is woven and dyed in Montreal, so I'm happy to be able to support manufacturing in my country. On one side of the fabric, it's a smooth knit, and then on the inside it's a nice soft fleece texture. You can see that. So it looks nice and snugly warm. And then I also have a rib knit, which is in the exact same color. Again, organic cotton in the color Evergreen. And this, see the texture? Rib knit is for the neckband, as well as the cuffs and the waistband. And I also, one thing I appreciate about Core Fabrics is it's my first time buying from them, but when you add something to your cart, they ask if you want to add the matching thread. So they did the color selection of the matching thread for me. So this is, again, the fabric's called Evergreen, and the color of the thread is 472. That's a perfect match. Another thing that I want to add, so although my sweatshirt is going to be pretty simple, just one color, the straight sleeve, the regular length, there is one little thing that I want to add to personalize it a bit. So I have this patch, which looks like a jar of Nutella, which I'm just planning on adding just to the front. And I think it's super cute, and just to give it a little bit of personality, since it is a very basic, simple shape. All right, I think we'll get started. Okay, first things first, I want to go over the sizing. So here in the blue, we have body measurements, and I've just circled my body measurements, my bust, waist, and hip. Looking at this, it would put me in a size 4, with my waist in a size 3. But when I went over here in the pink section for the finished garment measurements, I see that there's a whole 10 centimeters of ease in the garment. This kind of makes sense because it is a sweatshirt, so you will be wearing it over top of other clothes. And you do want ease of movement as well. However, because I have quite a petite frame, I feel like 10 centimeters is probably too much. I don't like to be swimming in my clothes. I don't like wearing oversized clothes because it just makes me look smaller. So I went up to a size 3, and this has a 5 centimeter difference, and I think that should be plenty of space. So I decided to just cut a straight size 3. So that's something to keep in mind when you're choosing what size to cut out. Look at your body measurements, but also take a look at your finished garment measurements. Obviously, the style of the clothing will dictate how tight it should be and how much ease is in the pattern. But yeah, just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to cut out a size 3, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the rib knit fabric because this is the first time I've worked with rib knits and I found it a little bit confusing. When I was purchasing the fabric, this is cool. Core Fabrics, when you purchase something, they give you a little tag with all the information on it. So when I was looking online at the rib knit, it said that it was 45 centimeters wide, but that it was woven in a tube, and it came in a tube. And I was really unsure about what that meant, but I'll give you a look so you can see. So this fabric is woven on a circular loom, which means that it's woven in the round, and it comes, yes, literally in a tube shape. So I think this is something that confused me because I wasn't sure what that meant. So although it says it's 45 centimeters wide, all you have to do to use this is cut along one of the sides and then unfold it and use it like regular fabric. So although it says 45 centimeters, once you cut it open, it'll actually be double that. So open, it's 90 centimeters wide. So that's something that confused me. I had ordered 0.75 yards of fabric. For some reason they work in yards, but anyway, and this is my remaining fabric. So as you can see, I had probably twice as much as I needed. I was a little sad about that, but that's okay. It's a learning process, and if this turns out well, maybe I'll make a second one. I'll definitely keep it for sure though. So I'll show you the pieces that I cut out. Oh, again, this fabric was super thick, so I was not able to cut it out on the fold. I had to cut it open and then lay the pattern pieces flat and then just flip them to cut out the pieces because my scissors would not go through it. So I have one neckband cut on the fold with a little notch here. I'm doing the straight sleeve and I need 2 sleeve cuffs. This one is cut on the grain, so following the rows of ribbing. Again, a notch there. And the hemband, I need 2, and those are cut on fold. So there's 1 and 2. And there's a notch here. And in the pattern, it's not on the pattern pieces, but when you read through the pattern, which you should, I've read through the pattern several times, so I'm well prepared. It tells you to put a notch in the center front on the top and the bottom. So I've just highlighted it here in purple. So it doesn't indicate these notches on the pattern pieces. However, when you read through the instructions, it tells you to put those little notches there. So that is the rib knit cut, and I'll show you the large pattern pieces. Here we go. Okay, so here are the main fabric pieces cut out. I had purchased 1.5 yards of the cotton fleece, which seems to be a much more accurate amount of fabric for the size that I need compared to the ribbing, which I had ordered way too much of, but that's okay. It's a learning experience. So I have the pieces cut out. Here is the straight sleeve, which I've cut out too. There are notches on the armhole and at the shoulder. And then we have the front bodice piece, which is cut on the fold. There's some notches that are indicated in the pattern, but like with the hemband, there is a notch that you have to add at the center front on the bottom. So I've just highlighted it here in purple. And then the back bodice piece, which same thing, there's a little notch that you have to add. So I have all my pieces cut out, everything's been pressed. I will take you over to the sewing machine and we'll get started sewing. Okay, so we are ready to sew. So I'll show you the setup that I've done for my machine. As I said, this is my first time working with jersey fabric, so I've done a lot of research. I know that I'm supposed to be using a jersey needle. Now jersey needles have a ball point, so a regular needle is sharp, but a jersey needle has a slightly rounded tip, and that's so that the needle does not go through the fibers. It doesn't pierce through the fabric. The ball point helps the needle go kind of around the fibers of the fabric so that it doesn't actually damage the fabric as it's going through. So I've decided to go with the size 80-12, which is, it's just the middle one in my set. I figured that that would be the safest. Again, this is my first time trying this, but I did a test on both some scraps of the fleece as well as the rib knit. You can't see it because the thread's the same color, but it seems to have worked well, so I'm going to go with that. Then over here in the instructions, it gives you a lot of tips on setting up your machine. Now it says to use either, so when you're working with knit fabrics, you have to use a stretch stitch. And that's because the fabric has a bit of stretch in it, whether it's like a spandex or just mechanical stretch from the way that the fabric is woven. See how it has slight movement there? So you don't want your stitches to pop. So you have to use a stretch stitch or a lightning stitch. Now my machine is an older machine, so I don't have the lightning stitch, but I do have a stretch. So we'll be using that. And Tilly recommends 2.5 to 3 millimeters long and 1.5 millimeters wide. So I'll show you my machine here. I have a Kenmore sewing machine. It's probably from the mid-90s. It's my mom's machine, it's not mine. So I can set this stitch length here. So I've set it to 3. But the stitch width, because it's a mechanical machine and not a digital machine, I can't set it exactly at 1.5 millimeter width. My machine here has, if you can see, this is the widest length for the zigzag stitch, which is 5 millimeters wide. And then it has 12 notches here, which are different widths of zigzag until you get to the straight stitch here. So I just used some math skills and was playing around with it, and I've decided to go 4 notches from the straight stitch, which is about, I think it's about 1.5 millimeters. Might not be perfectly accurate, but it's close to the recommendation. So I'm just going to click it 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to try to use that same setting for every seam that I do. So I just indicated that on my little post-it note here. 4th notch from the straight stitch, length of 3. So my little cheat sheet for next time, so I don't forget. Okay, so I have my needle in. I have my machine set up. I've done my test swatches. I have 2 bobbins already wound because I hate I hate running out of bobbin thread and having to stop sewing part of the way through. I'm just going to plug in my iron now, and then we'll get to sewing. Okay, so first step is to put the front bodice and the back bodice piece together, and we're going to sew them together at the 2 shoulder seams using a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. And then I also have this piece prepped. This is the neckband, and we're putting the 2 together, and we're sewing again 1.5 centimeter along the short side. So we'll bring down the camera and you can see, hopefully you can see the machine. There we go, learning process here. So 1.5, and we'll get started. Alright, there we go. First 2 seams done. I have to go grab my scissors, but we'll do the neckband first. There we go. So we'll go give these a press. Okay, so for the neckband here, I just have to trim the seam allowance and then press it flat, and then I'm going to open it up and putting the wrong sides together, I'm going to press it into the tube shape. So I'm going to head over to the iron and I'll do that. I'll be back. Okay, back up here. So I have ironed my, or I gave my neckband, I should say. I gave my neckband a press. So I had to fold it in half, wrong sides together, and then just press it smooth so it stays in place. And now I have to find the center front of the neckband. So obviously the seam is going to go in the back. So I'm just going to fold it in half to find the center front. I'm going to mark it with a pin, a little yellow pin here. There we go. So center back is the seam, center front is with the pin. Now I'm going to do the same with the neck opening. So I'm just going to line up the two shoulder seams that we just made. Try to make it as smooth as I can. Mark the center front. I used the yellow pin on the neckband, so I'm going to use the yellow pin on this as well. Just mark the center front, and then I'm going to do the same with the back. So again, lining up the shoulder seams, smoothing it out, and I have two different colored pins, so I'm just going to use the blue one for the back, blue for back, I guess that makes sense, and then there we go. So the next step is to insert the neckband into the neck opening. So I use the yellow for the front. I'm just going to line those pins up and the back seam with the center back, which I marked in blue, and just slightly stretch the neckband so that it fits around the neck opening. I have to be careful not to stretch the bodice piece. This fabric doesn't have any stretch in it, but there is a bit of mechanical stretch because of the nature of knit fabrics, the way that they're knit together instead of woven. There is some mechanical stretch, so I'm just going to be careful with that. I'm going to do this off camera because I know it's going to take me a very long time, and I don't think you want to watch, so here we go. Okay, so to attach the neckband to the neck hole, the instructions tell you to lay it out flat, lay the bodice out flat, right sides facing up, and then lay the neckband on top, and match your pins up. And then you're supposed to stretch the neckband slightly as you pin it around the neck hole, because again the neckband piece is slightly smaller, but it has the stretch in it. So it was a little difficult to do. It said to do it flat, but I kind of did it hovering in the air, stretching as I went. So the next step is to stitch the neckband on. I'm a little nervous about that. The goal is to keep an even tension so that the neckband is evenly distributed around the hole. Again, making sure that your front and back line up properly. So we're going to go to the machine and we'll give it a try. Here we go. Okay, this is the part that I'm most nervous about, to be honest. A bit of maneuvering to get this under my presser foot. Lower my needle. Okay. Okay, so again, trying to maintain even pressure or even stretch of the neckband around the neck opening. I am mentally prepared that if it doesn't turn out on the first go, it won't be the end of the world. I can unstitch it and I can try again. So I've prepared myself mentally for that because I know what happens. And my stitch ripper is my best friend. Not to be angry about that part of the learning process because I know it's normal. Very, very normal for me too. I'm just gonna try to roll this up maybe so it takes up less space under my machine. Roll up this end as well. Let me see. Okay. As I'm kind of fiddling with it, I want to make sure that my needle is down in the fabric when I do so that it doesn't shift around. Okay, I made it to the center front. I don't want to say halfway done because we're assuming it's done correctly. Keep going. Slowly, slowly. Okay. There we go. Trim that. Try to get it out from under my machine. Okay. I think I did it on the first try. Okay, I'll move you over here so I can see better. I think I did it on the first try. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is exciting. I was really nervous. Like I said, this was what I was most nervous about. This is why I've never worked with knit fabrics, but I just like took a look around where I attached it and it looks neat. I don't see any tucks. There looks like a little bit of a wobble in one spot. It looks even. I'm surprised. The pattern said it was for confident beginner. I'm like maybe a beginner who lacks confidence sometimes in my own skills. Okay, won't be silly. I'm going to try it on. So where's my, yep, that's the back. It sticks up a little bit, I think. But maybe I just need to iron it down. I think that looks good. Okay, maybe this will be a new thing. Maybe this will be a new thing. All right. I will give this a press. It does seem to be sticking kind of up a little bit, but I think that's just because it needs to be pressed with the iron. Let me take a quick peek at the next step here. Yeah, okay, so I have to just trim the seam allowance and give it a press. Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm going to read through the instructions to make sure I'm ready for the next step, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I gave my neckband a good press. Now it is sticking up a little bit. If you can see the curve here, it is standing up. So I think that means that the neckband maybe is a little bit too big for the opening. But honestly, I don't mind if it doesn't lie flat against my chest. If it sticks up a little bit, I tried it on. It looks fine. But again, if that's something that bothers you, you can unstitch it, open up the neckband, trim it down a little bit, sew it back up, and then sew the whole thing back up together. This isn't something that bothers me, that it sits up. Not a big deal at all. Not a deal breaker. Not worth, for me, not worth undoing it and starting again. Went so well, I'm gonna stick with it. The other option that you have is you can top stitch or a zigzag stitch along the neckband, just so that on the inside it lays flat if your fabric doesn't press flat. But mine seems to be good. I like it's a bit of a cleaner look without the top stitching, so I think I'm gonna stick with that. It's optional, so I'm not gonna do it. And it does seem to be lying flat when I pressed it, on the inside. So the next step is to add the sleeves. So I'm just gonna open this out flat. The sleeves are inserted flat, I guess is the term. So I'm gonna open this up, right sides facing up, and I'm going to attach the sleeves, matching up all of the notches. So on the sleeve piece we had a shoulder notch, which will line up with the shoulder seam, and there was one notch at the front and 2 notches at the back, so that you know which arm goes on the left and which arm goes on the right. So I'm going to lay this out and we'll attach the sleeves. Okay, we're on the other side of my table. Sorry, it's starting to get dark now. It's only, I think, 2:30 in the afternoon, but we're expecting snow soon, so it's quite overcast. And I seem to be losing my natural light. Anyway, the sleeve is attached flat. So I have the bodice pieces here. This is the front bodice, and on this side is the back bodice. So I have it opened up, the good size facing up, and I've marked in yellow pins here my notches. So at the front bodice piece there's a single notch, then we have our shoulder seam, and then the back bodice piece is marked with a double notch. So I have 2 pins to mark it. I did yellow pins for the sleeve, and I'm using blue pins for the other one, just to keep things straight in my head. And I've done the same with the sleeve here. So this is, the right sides are together, so I have, for the sleeve, the wrong side is facing up, and I've marked my notches as well, because I was having a hard time seeing them, so I marked them with my pins. So this is the front of the armhole, this is the shoulder seam, which will line up with this, and then this is the double at the back of the armhole. So now my right sides are together, and I'm going to pin them together, matching up the yellow pins. So I'm going to start with those notches that I've indicated already, and then work my way around the sleeve in either direction, and then we'll flip it, do the same on the other sleeve, and then bring it to the sewing machine. All right, here we go. Okay, it's quite dark now. So I've attached the 2 sleeves. Again, I laid it out flat, right sides facing up, and then I attached each sleeve right sides together. So the sleeves are now pinned in place, and I'm just going to stitch this again with the 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. So we'll just take our time here. It's a lot of fabric to get under the machine here. Okay. Oh yeah, we can see. All right. All right. First sleeve head attached. Trim that thread there. Looks good. I don't see any tucks or puckers in the fabric. I'll take a closer look when I'll sew the other sleeve, and I'll take a closer look when I bring it to the iron to press my seams. But looks good. I think I'm gonna have to turn on the light though. Winter in Northern Ontario. Go sleeve number 2. I guess because I'm sewing 2 curves together, I'm required to like play around with it every once in a while, every few stitches. Just rearrange it under my presser foot to make sure that everything goes through smoothly and that I'm not catching too many layers, like nothing's folded on top of itself. Making sure everything is nice and flat and we just have the 2 pieces that we need going through and nothing extra. So that's what the constant little adjusting is, just so you're aware. Try and get my shoulder seams to lay flat, like the excess thread, excuse me, the fabric to lay flat, one on each side of the seam. Seam allowance, that was the word I was looking for. The 2 seam allowances to lie open. Looks good, so I'm going to take it over to the iron and give it a good press, and we'll move on to the next step, which will be, so we just attached the shoulder, it's called the sleeve head. It's really like the shoulders of the top part of the sleeve together to the bodice, and then I'll give it a press, make sure everything is good, and then we're going to sew up the inside of the arms as well as the side seams at the same time. So we're going to be doing a long seam that goes from the wrist up the arm into the armpit and then all the way down the side seam. Okay, give this a press and move on to the next step. Okay, so I have pinned together the arms as well as the side seams, so I can show you. It's all the way down the arm into the armpit and down the side seam. Done that for both. So we'll get to sewing. Again, this is one continuous stitch following the arms and the bodice. All right, I think I'll start at the bodice end, work my way up. I don't know if it makes a difference or not. sewing machine in on the action. All right. This is a very long seam. I just had a scary thought of, oh wow, this bobbin has lasted a very long time. This is when it'll run out. Either on this side or on the other. Good. I started from the bottom of the side seams of the bodice, I should say, because the instructions tell you to press the seam allowances towards the sleeve. So as I'm sewing from the bottom up into the armpit, I can push the seams easily toward the inside of the sleeve. So that's just my reasoning behind why I wanted to go in that direction. I don't think the instructions specify which direction you go in, but just to capture that bulk in the seam going in the direction that I want it to. Found it easier to start on the inside bodice. Okay, number 2. Since the outside of the fabric is, or the inside of the fabric is facing up, I'm finding that the fluffy fleece is providing a bit of resistance, I want to say, against the machine, so it's not gliding as easily as I would like. So I'm not pulling on the fabric as I'm like pulling it through the machine, but I am holding it from the other end just to help feed it through a little more evenly, but I'm not like tugging it through the machine, just so you know. Okay. There we go, it's looking like a sweater now. Excellent. Okay, so now I have to press the seams and trim the seam allowances a little bit as well. But I've been reading through my instructions, of course, and I want to do some of my pressing at the same time. So I'm just going to skip to the next step, which is creating the sleeve cuffs. So this is a piece for the sleeve cuff, and I have 2 of them, obviously, one for each side. So all I'm doing is folding it in half with the short sides together. Those are the sides with the notches. And I'm just going to pin it in place. And then I'm going to sew along that short end there. I've already prepared this one. So I'll sew these 2 up, and then like we did with the neckband, I'll sew them first and then I'll explain. A little easier. Okay, won't take long. So what I'm going to do is press it. I'm going to trim the seam allowances, and like I did with the neckband, so I'm going to press the seam that I just created open, and then I'm going to fold it wrong sides together, so that's doubled up, and I'm going to give it a press like that. So these are going to be the cuffs at the wrists. Okay, so I'll sew up the other one. I'll give it a press, trim the seam allowances, and then, yeah, fold it show you again how I folded it. So press the seam allowance open, so that's flat. Bring them together, and then everything will be flipped, wrong sides together to create a cuff. And the two open ends here. All right, okay. Okay, so the next step is to attach the cuffs to the sleeves. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, because again, this cuff is a lot smaller than the sleeve opening, similar to the neckband and the neck opening. So since it's smaller, we're going to have to stretch it while we're sewing. So just to make sure that I have even distribution, I'm going to mark quarter points on my sleeve. So I'm going to use on my cuff, sorry. I'm going to use the seam as one of my markings. So I'm just going to use a pin. Again, I'm going to use color pins just to make my life a little easier. And then I am going to fold it in half like this. So my seam is on this side with my pin. I'm going to fold it in half, lie it flat, and then mark, use another blue pin here to mark the half point. Not quite lined up. There we go. Now I'm going to put my two pins together, blue pins together, which will give me the quarter points on either side. I'm going to use the yellow pin for that, just to help me keep track. So again, my blue pins are together, going into this corner here. Then just straightening it out, making sure that my two edges are lined up. They're not quite lined up where my seam was, so I'm just gonna redo that one. There we go. I think this is where it would be useful to have those clips instead of pins, because it's kind of thick. And then I'm going to do the same thing. This is looking like a sweater already. It's so exciting. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the wrist. So my seam that was on the inside here, I'm going to mark also with the blue pin. Then I'm going to fold it in half. My blue pin is way at the end. Fold in half. Mark my halfway point with another blue pin. Put those two blue pins together. Oops. And mark my quarter points with a couple of yellow pins. Now this isn't something that was in the instructions per se, but again, it's my first time working with knit fabrics, and I want it to be as even as possible, trying to make it as easy on myself as I can. The colors for me are a good point of reference, but you do what works best for you, obviously. So this is, my shirt is the right way out, as is my cuff. So I'm going to put right sides together. I'm just going to slip the cuff over the sleeve so that, like, my pins are at the top, the opening is at the top, the smooth end is at the bottom. Same thing, my sleeve, the opening is at the top. I'm just going to slide my cuff over my sleeve carefully, Try not to disturb any of those pins too much. Okay. Now here's where I'm using my pins as my reference points. So I'm lining up the seams of my top with the seams of, or my sleeve with the seams of my cuff. So again, I use the blue pin there. Line it up, pull the pin out. What's thick? Go through all those layers. Okay, and I'm working my way around, lining up my 2 yellow pins now. Requires a lot of manipulation here. And through all those layers, I can pull that one out. Back onto my blue. Line those up. Pull one out. Put it through all the layers. Get rid of my other one. And my last yellow pin. I hope this is helpful. Helpful information. This is my learning process. All right, so we have the cuff attached to the sleeve, and again the band, the cuff band, is smaller than the sleeve opening. So as I sew, I'm going to have to stretch, taking care to just stretch the ribbing fabric and not stretch the regular fabric as I put it through my machine. In the picture it had the ribbing on the base of the machine and the fleece up, so I think we're going to try that. Okay. Yes. Okay. I've already done my other sleeve. That was practice before I showed you what I was doing. So put my needle in, move that blue pin there, and I'm gently going to stretch as I sew between the pins. And I'm going to make sure that my needle is down as I'm manipulating it so that my project doesn't move under the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm going to gently pull on my next pin, excuse me, was the yellow one. Make sure my layers are lined up here. Okay. So I'm going to gently pull on the yellow one, and I'm going to pull on the back as well to help feed it through the machine. I didn't backstitch, however, since I'm going in around, as long as I go over those stitches again when I make it to the end, we should be fine. There's a mistake there. Yep, I accidentally caught some of the fabric in, so get my snips. Okay, gonna fight with my machine a bit. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So I said this was finicky stuff. So when I was sewing, the bottom part here goes under the machine and the top kind of floats above it, and it kind of dipped down a bit, so I sewed over a part that I was not supposed to. So I just had to take it out of my machine, but I think we're good to keep going. Might have, yeah, so I'll just have to go back a tiny bit where I had got caught in the machine, so we'll kind of have another second row of stitches there, but I think we're fine. I put my needle down. I'm manipulating here. Okay. This time I will back tack. Okay, looks good. So there is color. There it is. One cuff done. On to the next. Second sleeve done. So I'm going to take this over to iron, give it a press. Oh, my seams don't quite line up there. Not perfect, but that's okay. I think I'll be the only one who notices. All right, so we'll take this to the iron, give it a press, and trim my seam allowances. Okay, back at this angle. So I have trimmed the cuffs of the sleeves and ironed everything flat. So the next step is the hemband, which is at the bottom. So the hemband is 2 pieces. So we're just going to put them together, the short sides together, and then stitch them up. Making sure that we match the notch that was there. Okay, so there we go. Short end, 2 pieces pinned together. So the hemband, hemband is sewn together. So like we did with the ribbing, other ribbing pieces, the neckband and the cuffs, I'm going to take this to the iron, press the seams flat, pressing the seam allowances open, then I'll trim it, and then again putting the ends together and then flipping the entire thing to create a tube, which will be the hemband. Okay, we'll give this a press. So I was just ironing my hemband. I just want to show you outside. Can you see that through my garden there? Look at the snow coming down. Oh my goodness. I did not think we were going to get snow today, but it's coming down. Coming down pretty heavily. Anyway, back to the ironing we go. Okay, so as I did with the cuffs, how I showed you how I divided it up into quarters with the blue and the yellow pins alternating so that it was easier for me to keep track. I did the same thing with the hemband. So with my blue pins again, I marked the halfway points and the quarter points, and then I used the yellow pins to mark between each quarter, so every eighth now has a pin, and I did that for both the bottom of the shirt, bottom of the sweater, and on the hemband. And then I lined them all up, and now I've pinned them all in place. So again, I'm going to, because the hemband is smaller than the sweatshirt itself, I'm going to have to stretch it as I go between the pins. See how there's like this gap here? Maybe you can. So I have to stretch it as I sew. All right, so me down here. I'm just going to check on my bobbin because I haven't changed it yet, and it's full. Maybe I did a really good job filling it, I don't know. So I'm still on my first bobbin. I filled 2 in preparation for running out. I had also bought 3 spools of thread, but I guess because this is a knit fabric, knit fabrics don't fray. So they say that you don't need to finish the raw edges. I don't have an overlocker or a serger, but I have a special foot for my sewing machine that I usually use with a zigzag stitch to overlock the raw edges. But I haven't been with this project because it said it wasn't necessary to do so since it won't be fraying. Haven't done it yet, but I guess once I do a few washes, if I see that it won't fray again, but if I see that it's not looking good, then I can always finish those edges after. But so far it's good, and so far we haven't run out of thread. So just need a little more space here. There we go. Find one of my side seams. Okay, so again, as I'm sewing, I'm going to be pulling on the fabric gently. My needle is down, my foot is down, and my needle is down. So that was at the blue pin at the side seam, and now I'm just going to hold on to my next pin, which is the yellow one, and pull it slightly as I feed it through the machine. All right, where's my foot? I like doing these quarter points because then when I need to pull on the machine or pull on the fabric to feed it through, I'm not pulling on an enormous amount. So because there's little distance between the pins, I'm not needing to pull as much. Okay, give this a press and a trim, and then it's just the Nutella patch to add. I think I'm finished. Okay, so I'm finished. I have completed the sweatshirt. I think it fits really well. In terms of length, it hits me at the high hip, which I think is perfect. The wrists, at full length it comes halfway down my palms, but when I stretch out, it's not too short. In terms of fit, I think it's a bit snug on the chest. Remember, I was supposed to do a size 4. However, I decided to size down to a size 3 because of all the extra ease. So it doesn't feel tight, but I couldn't wear this. I don't think I'd feel comfortable wearing it over top of another sweater. So this sweatshirt would be, my top layer, obviously. I think the length is perfect. It's nice and soft, snugly on the inside. I really like this fabric. The hemband and the wristbands are good. The neckband, as I mentioned, it is sitting, it's kind of like flapping up. On the front, it seems to be lying flat, but at the back, it does seem to be sticking up a bit. So I think that's excess fabric. So that was the first step, was sewing the neckband on. And remember, I didn't want to redo it because I thought it had gone in nicely. I don't think it's something that'll bother me. I'll definitely still wear it. I wouldn't not wear it because it keeps a little bit at the back. I don't like stuff tight around my neck anyway. And it's behind me, so I won't really notice it. Also, probably my posture and the shape of my back has an impact, since my hair is down most of the time anyway. I don't think it's noticeable. I love this color. I think this color is gorgeous. I think it suits me, my hair color, my complexion. Again, I don't have this color in my wardrobe at all, but I really love it. I think it's beautiful. And then, of course, the tiny little thing that I added to personalize it, to change a plain green sweatshirt, basic style sweatshirt, to give it a little personality, make it my own. I have my little teeny tiny jar of Nutella that I ironed onto the sweatshirt. So it just makes it a little special, makes it unique, makes it mine. I really like it. I just ironed it on. I think that should be fine. If after a couple washes it seems to loosen, or if the edges curl, then I'll go over it with the sewing machine, trying to edge stitch as close to the edge as I can. It does have a little bit of a black border, but it's very, very thin. I think if I were to actually sew it on, I would have to do it by hand. I don't think I'd be able to maneuver the sewing machine with that kind of precision. So maybe I'll do that after this. Sew it by hand, just with black thread following the black border, and hopefully it won't be visible. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my first ever YouTube video and trying out a new pattern. Again, this is the Tilly and the Buttons Billie sweatshirt, and the fabric I got is organic cotton fleece from Core Fabrics, and the ribbing is also from Core Fabrics. I will try and link the shops in the description below. And once again, thank you so much for watching. Have a very nice weekend. Bye. Okay, so a little update from yesterday. I had finished the sweatshirt, but if you remember, the neckband wasn't sitting perfectly flat. So after wearing it for a few hours, I decided I did want to change it because it wasn't difficult to install the neckband in the first place. Thought it would be easier for me to unstitch it, shorten it, and then reattach it. So I unstitched the whole thing. I shortened it just by a few centimeters, and then I reattached it with my quarter points of reference. And I think it's sitting a lot more flat against the back of my neck. And it didn't take me that long to unstitch it. And I think it sits a lot better. Another thing I did was the Nutella patch. I had ironed it on, because it's an iron-on patch, but afterwards I decided that I was a little nervous about how secure it would be once it went through the wash. So I just went in with a hand needle and thread, and it has a little black border around the patch, and I tried as carefully as I could to sew in that little black border, just to make sure that the patch stays on and that doesn't start uncurling after a few washes. again, overall, I'm super excited about this pattern. The instructions were very easy to understand. There were pictures throughout. The fabric was super easy to work with as well. I would say that this combination of the pattern, the Billie sweatshirt by Tilly and the Buttons, and then this organic cotton fleece and the ribbing is just a great combination. This is exactly what I had envisioned. This is what I had wanted, and I think it came out perfectly. So I'm very happy with the final results. Yeah, I definitely want to make another one now. So I'll go back and see if I can find maybe more of this cotton fleece in another color. I think that would be cool, just to add a little bit of embroidery onto it, or something else again to personalize it. Yeah, anyway, thank you very much for coming along with the journey. Again, this is my first sewing video, my first video, and I hope you learned something new, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day. Bye.